Hi, I'm Michael. I'm a small business owner. Previously, a coulda, woulda, shoulda, but now I'm a gonna. I'm always looking for fun. I'm a pretty bad improv artist, a bit manic, and always looking for something new and interesting to entertain me. I'm a TV host and your host right now for what we call the Second Scene Podcast, a Dweeb's global production, where we interview people you know about things that they're not necessarily known for. I'm here today with Dan Chan, whose first scene was as a pre-IPO PayPal employee, cashing in some of his stock options, letting the rest go to follow his true dream, and second, third, and fourth scenes as a professional magician, performing around the world, entertaining everyone from the elites of Silicon Valley, world leaders, celebrities, and more. So welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Michael, for having me.
Was that a good summary of who you are?
Absolutely.
What was working for PayPal pre-IPO days like?
I think it's really important to spot trends. And when they were doing that referral bonus back in the day, when they were giving you $5 to refer a friend, we were just spamming everyone, I think, right? So I knew that it was going to take off. It was, Google and PayPal and all these other companies back in the day. And it was just interesting because I did not know my good friend Ken Howery would end up working for the as an ambassador, I think, to Sweden now. I didn't know that Levishin would end up setting up so many companies like Affirm and Slide and all those other companies. And I was just in my own little oblivious magic world. I didn't build that network that ended up becoming that PayPal mafia that's been featured in Fast Company and so many other companies. Mm-hmm. So it's I was in my own world, and I wish I wasn't there, because then I could have caught back on those networks.
Gotcha.
And now I'm just like knocking and they're not answering the door.
No, they're not. Like, who's Dan Chan? We don't remember him over at PayPal. What did you do at PayPal?
I was in customer service first, and I quickly went into finance. So when I went into finance, I was doing the deposits. Back in the day, we would do this verification thing with the bank, and they would put money in your bank account, and then these silly people would think that they'd have to pay it back. So they would send envelopes back to our office, and I would have to credit their account, then manually go to the bank and deposit like sometimes coins or checks for like 14 cents.
That's what I was going to say. It would usually be like a 4-cent deposit and like a 2-cent deposit. And that's funny. They thought they would mail it back to you.
So I ended up not doing real finance. I ended up being more like a glorified bank teller at PayPal. And I would do reconciliations and these really boring things, not like financial deals or I imagine finance as mergers and acquisitions or looking at high-level financial statements or making a difference. I didn't realize that you have to go through this grunt work and prove yourself street cred-wise in terms of doing the boring stuff. So I ended up hightailing it out of there pretty soon after, after 13 months. I vested 13 months.
I guess that treated you pretty well.
Honestly, I sold my stock really soon afterwards because I heard about Russian mobsters and fraud, and we'd say, here's our burn rate. Because in these companies, it's a race against time. It's a race against the next round of funding. So I ended up selling most of my stock and buying Disney, which I look back on my portfolio and I made 600% returns on Disney, but that looks good. But certain stocks I've had recently, like Square and Neo, had 600% returns in like a year or three. So like I have Neo and I have other things, and I did okay, but I think it's more about pitching media about the story that I was pre-IPO PayPal. I did see Elon Musk. I did see Peter Thiel in the offices. I think they might have even seen me perform a little bit of magic, but that was when I kind of sucked at magic. So
yeah, Tesla's done well for me stock-wise. Neo is essentially, I've done well with that. I'm not exactly, their car manufacturer is similar to Tesla in China, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah, that's done very well for me as well. I lucked into that one. I love technology, so I'm so like Elon Musk, and I have my Tesla Model 3 and all of that. But I can't let you gloss over the Russian mafia comment. What was it with the Russian mafia and PayPal?
Like, we'd hear these reports about people funneling things from certain accounts, and I was a vigilante back then. The statute of limitations are probably expired, and I don't think anyone's going to chase me for this, but never talked about it back then. But
Heard it first on this show right here.
I would actually lock accounts of guys that we knew they were fraudsters, but the federal law said we had to do something or like let them go away from the money. So I actually clicked locked on those accounts so they couldn't take their money out. They called customer service and they'd come probably back around and they got their money back. But they were fraudsters, and we knew that they were fraudsters, but our hands were tied.
Oh, wow. So they'd be using PayPal to.
No, they would. The scam was they would sell something on eBay. The money would go into like a $10,000 or $100,000 account, and they'd funnel everything in. They would maybe try to ship a phone or something that they'd never deliver. So we would see this pattern, and it was just clear. Everything funneling to that account was a fraudster, but we couldn't prove it was a fraudster. So that they were saying, hey, you can't lock this account. And at that time, I think PayPal was paying for it.
Okay. Wow. I mean, people are still using eBay and PayPal for.
No, we don't have any of that. That was long gone.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it was just this weird thing that people were doing. It's just
Gotcha.
like it was just a mess. But they sorted everything out, and they finally they figured out how to deal with the fraudsters, and that's why these guys were so successful afterwards. But I just saw some of it behind the scenes, so I dumped my stock pretty soon afterwards.
Gotcha. I mean, any new technology, it's immediately jumped on by fraudsters and by the criminal element trying to figure out how they can take advantage of it.
Yeah.
People don't realize PayPal's been around a long time, and back when PayPal and eBay first started, it was kind of the Wild West. It really was the people selling stuff from the garage and really the small time people. It's not really that anymore. Unfortunately, things have changed, but people, I don't think people using it now know exactly where it came from and how unique it really was and how unique PayPal was as a payment system. I don't think there were really many other payment systems out at the time.
Yeah, it was. Well, they had a good vision, especially in the beginning, the story. They really knew how to pitch media. And that's one thing that I learned from that was the stories that they told behind the scenes and the stories they told themselves, because we had these shirts that said like something like one world currency or something. It's kind of like, I think it was almost the genesis of Bitcoin. I wouldn't be surprised if some people who were in those offices ended up founding Bitcoin because it just sounded like that narrative.
It sounded that's exactly what I was thinking when you said it.
Yeah.
It's very cultish.
Yeah, you had to drink the Kool-Aid. And I realized.
So you left PayPal and you immediately knew you wanted to be a magician. Was this something you knew as a kid? Was this something you had always followed?
I just realized I could see a path to the greats, because I would go to these conventions and there you are hanging out with Penn and Teller and David Copperfield, or you'd see them and you'd go to that place and you're like, I see what he's doing. I think I can do that.
Well, most people don't say that.
Well, I mean,
that's
like,
what makes you different. That like you saw that and you were like, I can do that.
You have to, in order to visualize success, you have to visualize and believe that you can do that. And I said, in 20 years, I could be the leader of my industry. I mean, everything has pivoted to Zoom, but I knew that one day I'd have my day if I continue to work at it, because I would study from the guys who built up these guys. They're consultants. I knew who their behind the scenes guys were, like Chris Kenner. So whenever you formulate success, you have to reverse engineer success. So when my son was born, I knew I was going to teach him how to juggle, because I said to myself, you're going to learn how to pitch or street perform, because that's where I got my start. You have to look at your mentors and where they got their start and replicate it. So I said, if he walks up to someone and says, would you like to see a magic trick? And he's 5 years old, no matter how cute or no matter how skilled you may or may not know, you're going to say no. But if he was juggling 5 balls and 3 flaming torches, you're probably going to say yes right after he puts down his torches and say, would you like to see a magic trick? You're going to say yes. And that's what I did for him. He was making $120 in 2 hours by the age of 6, street performing.
Wow.
That was like his first time.
How old is he now?
He's 12.
Okay. And where is he performing at this point?
He's performing on Zoom shows. He just booked his first Allbirds, which is a unicorn company. They hired him for their corporate event of adults only. He also did Walmart Take Your Kids to Work Day. where it was like him only. They did not hire me. They didn't want to spend $1,000 to have me at their event. So they're just like, hey, we're going to have your son at $200 or $250 to do a Zoom show.
Yeah, wow.
Which is kind of ridiculous for $1 billion valuation company not to spend $1,000 on me, but
we all have a line. We all have a line we draw with our spending limits.
yeah. So that's kind of interesting, but yeah.
So when you saw them and you were like, I can do that. Had you ever done magic before, or did you just pick up a magic book and start playing with cards?
I was probably like you and many of the other people, maybe one step ahead. I could do these one-handed cuts and I could spring the cards from hand to hand, but that was just from imitation and looking at people. Mm-hmm. I bought magic books at Barnes and Noble, but I probably only had like 5 magic books as a kid. But I would look at them and it would be like any kid and study them. And then I would watch David Copperfield on television. Mm-hmm. And I would rewind and try to slow motion. And I think everyone does that on YouTube. I try to reverse engineer it, but I didn't think much about it. I didn't say I was going to be a magician. I just said, this is kind of interesting. This is a cool puzzle to crack. It's like a puzzle.
Gotcha. No, I did the same thing. I did magic as a kid. I never went anywhere with it. I did magic shows when I was like 13 for parties, but I was never very good at the sleight of hand. But I remember watching David Copperfield turn a $100 bill into a $1 bill. And I remember pausing like my VHS player and figuring out how he did it, and then going around and trying to take all the money from the parents when we'd have our relatives over. Like, give me 100, I'll turn it into one. So after you left, so as a kid, you kind of dabbled in it, but it wasn't serious. But then when you left PayPal, were you immediately booking gigs?
I was taking some time off. Like I would schedule a dental appointment and like just go do a gig whenever there was a profitable event. I would just, use my sick days, and it just kind of got owed. Every business needs a runway, and I was already taking off. I already had enough flights, flight time that I knew that I wasn't going to be rich off of it, but this is what I wanted to do. So it was at that point in time where let's do 5 silly kids event, make $250 an hour, or 8 of them. Like, you just do the math at it. If I could do 8 shows at $250, I've made $100,000 a year, and I have 2 weekends off. And I said, there's enough schools and birthday parties and events. And at that point, that was just like what everyone was charging, about $250 a show for a kid's show. I mean, people don't factor in the fact that you're marketing all the time. You are driving 1 hour, showing up half an hour early, and then driving back home 1 hour. So that won't, what you're telling yourself is a $250 gig is actually like more like $40 or $70 an hour after you figure out all the other things that you're doing involved in it. It really is a crazy thing to do.
Oh yeah, and then, just the setup and takedown of the tricks. Just even that is is very time consuming.
And talking about setup of the tricks, I specialized in close up, and I did a lot of juggling because it was more visual. I didn't have to do like big illusions, but in this home studio that you see me in now, I actually do a levitation daily, and I could not do that because of the technical setup. So the value that I'm driving to my new clients is a new business paradigm, because certain things I would have to charge like $2,500 for to levitate for literally 15 seconds. People always say no to it because unless you're a billionaire, you're not going to want that. But now I'm doing that daily. And that one investment, that one illusion that probably cost me $1,200 or $1,300, that I only used 3 times, I ended up using it almost every single day of the pandemic once I started performing it.
Oh, interesting.
And that forward thinking, realizing that that was a great levitation, really propelled me. I wasn't chasing the money in it, and people thought I was stupid. My mom's like, "Why are you buying this stupid, thing that?" It's just, I was so passionate about it. I wanted to be there.
I got you. It's pretty neat that you've taken the situation you're in and you've made it work for you. A lot of people are having a lot of trouble doing that, especially when it's such a visual thing that you're doing, and it's such where you're in person touching people.
Yeah, well, it was that or get a minimum wage job. So I started pitching CNBC. I'm going to share that in the and in that first article, I ended up talking about my failure about like losing 8K in 1 week. Literally everyone was canceling and I was stressed. And then I just said, let me get some media. And then I got the 2 Business Insider articles. But understanding the power of media and understanding that's how David Blaine and David Copperfield got big, was through media. And once you understand that power and you start pursuing it every day, for me, I was like, certain days, I actually remember waking up at 5 a.m., not taking any naps, and going until 2 a.m. at the pandemic. That's how hard I pushed.
Wow. Wow. Between practicing, putting together videos.
No, it was not practicing. It was getting my act to the level that I knew that people would start charging, would start paying thousands of dollars for again, because I literally started street performing again at $50, or like I would just say, hey, to friends on Facebook, would you like to see a new trick I'm working on? And I went from that street performance, but I realized that I needed to be a first mover advantage, because there's certain, especially where I wanted to position myself and knowing my personality, I want to get things out there in front of people versus, perfecting something and not realizing there's a market for it, just slowly ramping that up.
Gotcha.
And that was very interesting. And that was so stressful. I'm still traumatized by the pandemic because I really didn't know what was going to happen.
We all are.
That's what was so interesting to the media, because when I was telling these reporters of how scared I was, they sensed it, and they thought that was a newsworthy story.
So what are you doing? So you're performing every day. Who are you performing for, and how is that bringing in money?
Google has hired me twice in one day, 4 times within the last 2 months. Actually, two Google days happened. I've performed for Netflix and LinkedIn and a whole bunch of clients, 150 plus performances since March on Zoom.
Wow.
And I did 6 live events. So my business model has flipped. I've never done a Zoom event before March, and now I'm doing all Zoom events. And I'm preparing for people in Oslo, Norway, Singapore, Canada, and they're coming to see me perform both on Eventbrite, Airbnb, but mainly 95% of what I do is corporate work.
Okay, got you. What do you have a favorite trick that you enjoy performing the most?
I'm prolific. I'm like one of the guys. I've stuffed myself in a 6 foot tall by 6 foot wide balloon, which isn't magic, but I'll do anything. I would do anything for attention. I'm an attention whore. I juggle 3 flaming torches, 5 balls. I will pick pockets. Like, this is my son picking pockets on the streets of San Francisco. I taught him how to do that early on. But my favorite trick was getting out of
wait. You taught your son how to pick pockets. That's great. And he's really good at it.
To be honest, he's not really good at it. He was success. That was a real pickpocketing segment. If you just search James Chan Street Hustler on YouTube, this video will come up. We practiced probably 10 hours or 20 hours of pickpocketing. We put a watch on my wrist, and he just kept on taking the watch on and off my wrist for like many hours. Then we wrapped a stick with a towel around it with a watch around it. I said, here's how you do it with one hand. Just do this with one hand. And he would just continue to do it. And then I taught, well, actually that was actually a wallet steal, the one that I featured. So he knows how to do watches. I don't think he's done a watch yet, but he actually stole the guy's wallet in this one video, and he gave it back to him. But the way that you teach this is you impress them with magic first, and you say, hey, any chance I could show you some magic? And once they know you're a magician and not a street hustler, I said to him, any chance we could try something new on you? I don't know if it's going to work. But I do have this business card, and this is going to get you something that's probably worth 10 or 20, $100 or $200. After the trick, you're going to cash it in. So that sets in the mind that if he catches you, he's not going to punch the hell out of you. He's not going to you're not going to end up with a black eye.
Have you ever come close to it? Have you ever come close to getting the black eye?
I've had instances where I stole so many items at a banquet that I gave them all back, and one guy didn't come to claim it because they didn't realize that I picked their pocket. I was so good that he was laughing at everyone. I gave it back to not the lost and found, but the reception desk where they check in.
Mm-hmm.
Only weeks afterwards did he realize that, and he got it back from them. But I was like, no one's claiming this watch. Did they leave early?
Oh, no. Oops.
And then I started realizing, and it was just in my mind, I said, if one watch gets this reaction, imagine what 3 or 4 watches. So I just started thinking that someone's going to claim their watch. I never stole that many items that I have to keep track. I usually would have one person. Oh, I'm going to give it back to that one person. So that's kind of funny.
You had a little game going on with yourself there.
Yeah, you're going so fast, you don't realize how fast you're going and how you misdirected yourself.
What's the most dangerous act you've ever performed?
Several. One is pulling a thread out of my stomach. There's some risk to that. I did it only because I saw David Blaine do it, and I knew that one of my friends tipped how it worked, and it is actually kind of dangerous. There's no fake skin or anything. I'm not going to explain how it works, but it's very interesting. After we finish recording, we'll talk a little bit more about the backstory behind that.
Okay. What about, have you ever been injured?
Oh yeah, I used to more as a juggler. So I had this one effect where I had a letter opener in my mouth that was modified with duct tape, and I had this circus performer make it. There was a divot in it, and then I put a sword here, and it was a fake sword. So I'd balance this like this, right? Mm-hmm. Like in this, and then I let go. But one time I let go, this thing fell off because it really is a balance. There's no magnet or anything, and you're literally going under it. So I let go. This sword is not sharp. This is just like a round thing, but this is a letter opener. So I reach in and I do this to try to catch this falling sword, and my whole hand is bleeding as I'm doing the show. And I'm so stupid. I ended up not canceling the show. I just did 3 or 4 more tricks, and I just literally did the rest of the show with a napkin around my hand, or like just trying to, and all my props got, some of my props, the next couple props got bloody.
Oh, right.
And that is the mentality of performers thinking the show must go on. If I was smarter, I would have just slowed down and said, hey, you're hurt. Let's take care of this and forget about that. That's how stubborn I was back in the day. And when you're that stubborn, you're going to succeed.
Oh, you were dedicated to it.
Yeah.
So that was good. My next question was, has anything gone completely wrong? Sounds like that went completely wrong.
I've dropped doves at competitions because I didn't practice enough, and I balanced this rose on my nose like this. I think the thing is, I shouldn't trust my own balance. I balanced something on my nose. It was a rose. I dropped it. When I picked it up off the ground, the dove fell out.
Oh no.
I mean, if you're going to do 5,000 shows, you're going to have to suck, and you want to get that sucking out of the way in the beginning. It's a Silicon Valley model: fail and fail fast, but hopefully practice enough and slow down enough that you don't fail.
Yeah, well, as I said in my intro, I'm a terrible improv artist, but I keep trying. So I've had those few days that felt so good, so I'm going to keep going with it. But
I would love to do improv drills with you after this is over. I've in Clown Conservatory, that's one of the biggest things that I learned, and that's why I feel like I'm a decent magician. When things go wrong, is I don't have that deer in headlights look where you look paralyzed when you fail, because the audience feels for you when you are in this awkward situation. The reason I think we laugh is because we have all this tension built up and we don't know where to let it go. So you just don't relax or breathe. You laugh it out. That's my theory on comedy. That's one of my theories on comedy.
I like that theory. It sounds about right. But do you miss performing in front of people? Do you miss that feedback?
To be honest, I've given up my whole life to perform in front of people. Like, I've done 5,000 plus shows. I don't mind if the rest of them are all on Zoom. I plan on I'm planning on 10xing, or hopefully eventually 10xing what I'm doing live, just so that I just stay on Zoom, because I could just reach here and I can do an effect for you. I can literally do a better show on Zoom than I can do live, unless I had a theater where people came to see me, because the setting up and doing stuff in order to do a really good fast-paced show requires a lot of setup.
Hmm.
But when it's all here laid out, literally the benefits of a Zoom show are so overwhelming. A small trick plays big. I don't have to be eating out anymore. My son can do 5 minutes with me and build his brand and then go right back to playing video games and going back to school. I remember the logistics of flying to Germany. And it might sound great and glamorous, and it was glamorous and fun, but that's good for someone who's young. I remember going to Japan 4 times and Shanghai performing for billionaires, but I don't know if I'd really miss that because I've already done that, you know?
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. I think, yeah, a lot of performers they miss the audience and stuff, but it sounds like you're getting that even through Zoom. So,
I have to unmute specific people, and I have to have. There's a new challenge because I am the pioneer of Zoom shows, both by Hustle and Business Insider. But there's challenges that I realize that I'm figuring out that most magicians are I'm the market leader, and they're copying me. There's so many challenges. I enjoy the challenges, and because it's so difficult, I believe I'm going to be the #1 leader on Zoom. I'm going to be the one of those guys. I mean, you've already, with all the media you see, but I'm going to actually, my goal is to get in Business Week and Wired and many of these other publications. And I'm so determined to get there. If it's not going to happen this time, it's going to happen some other time. And if I'm doing a live show, I'm going to be compared to David Copperfield or any of the contemporaries. With me on Zoom, I'm going to be that standard. or at least this handful of 10 people that I'm competing with. Everyone else people have been doing live shows before I was in diapers. But who can say that they've been doing an interactive two-way show? We've done television. David Blaine's done television. Copperfield's done television. But they never said directly to you what's been happening. There's no point in time where I could perform for 1,000 people, pull them out of their seats, and if they're a bad spectator, throw them back out or mute them or kick them out of a room. Think about that. If you start thinking about the positives behind that, you get super excited. Like someone heckles you, you hit the mute button. And that to me is the media angle. And that's why I feel like I'm getting this press and I'm getting all this stuff is people are seeing that market leadership that I'm providing.
So I know you've gone through different name iterations. Are you Dan Chan, the Zoom Man, or what's the one you're gonna?
It's not as catchy. Mm-hmm. So I first started off as Dan Chan, the Balloon Man, really pivoted to Dan Chan, the Magic Man, which has the rhyme and alliteration, and rhymes and alliteration in marketing are very hypnotic. So think about that. Then Dan Chan, Master Magician, which was more of a positioning tool for dollars. It wasn't as memorable, but I would get higher dollar amounts. Then I went to Dan Chan, Billionaire's Magician, because I was performing for guys who are founders of Google and many other people that you can see on the Forbes list. And I've performed for the Allen and Company Sun Valley, Idaho conference where they had Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey and Phil Knight from Nike and all these famous people. But the name is really, really important. Each of those, I think, target a specific audience and it resonates with your audience. And I think it's so important how we label ourselves or how we perceive ourselves.
It most definitely is. It's it's advertising. You attract different crowds depending on what you're trying to project and what you're putting out there. So,
yeah. And it's kind of like how we brand ourselves or how we label ourselves first.
Oh yeah. And those labels keep changing. My label, what I call myself, changes weekly. I don't know. Going through midlife crisis, so I keep changing it. I don't know where I'm
or you're just growing. I think it's not about midlife crisis. It's about you finding that cash cow and then or finding that low hanging fruit. And you're just like, oh, that's there. And we're going to take that safe route.
Oh, yeah. Do you have any last bits of advice you can give to maybe up and coming kids that want to get into the magic world?
Buy as many tickets to magic shows as you can. Starting with my Airbnb experience or my Eventbrite, if you can catch it, because I'm not doing too many of them, but support other magicians that are interesting. You know, like I paid for this lecture, $40 every month. I went to this and I supported other performers and they could see that I wanted to support them and I would buy their lecture DVDs and tapes and things like that. So consume as much good magic as possible, and then go to magic lectures and maybe penguin lectures or vanishing ink. Vanishing ink is really great as well, because those guys had a scholarship, and they brought my son into like magic really early on, because he got the annual scholarship from Vanishing Ink's Magi Fest.
Oh, wow. I remember just hanging out in my local magic shop when I was younger and just watching customers come in and the people behind the counter demonstrating the tricks to everyone. And
Which magic shop did you go to?
I mean, I grew up in Rockville, Maryland, so God,
What's the name of that shop?
I don't remember the name of it. It's not there anymore though.
Okay.
I wish it was, 'cause I know exactly where it used to be.
Those are the gatekeepers, and now there are no gatekeepers because the gates are wide open and the world is flat. As Thomas Friedman said, the Earth is. I think he said the Earth is flat, or the Earth it's global. Like the Thomas Friedman quote, where I'm not a flat earther, but I'm talking about everything has gotten very condensed, and the information. Before we were in the information age, and now it's more about information with scaling, and the paradigms have kind of converged into from the industrial to information, and you have to understand each one of those eras in order to, I think, thrive or at least survive in this new scary world that we're in.
It's very different. It is very different. Yeah, it's a part of it is sad that you don't have access to hands-on, close by.
What's old is new, and what you have to you really have to not lose those skills, but at the same time develop those new skills that are uncomfortable for you. And for me, that's speaking. I really hated the fact of my speech patterns, because you can tell that I'm all over the place. My mind is going at 1,000 miles per hour, and that doesn't always come out to be coherent, and slowing down is the biggest thing I need to do. And doing the scary world is something, pushing myself onto podcasts is something that I really realized that I had to do in order to get to that next chapter, because I'm floating the idea of going out on making more documentaries and doing unscripted reality.
Got you. So with your family, unscripted reality, to your child performers and their dad, the magician?
Yeah, that is the idea. And that's hopefully someone will hear that, or I get better at telling that story and someone says, hey, we would love for that family with a 12-year-old son who juggles 3 flaming torches, 5 balls, and picks pockets to, we'd follow them for one season. I mean, hopefully you'd watch it.
I'd watch it. I'm already a fan. Where can I tune in tomorrow?
I got pulled over by a police officer a while ago, a true story. He said to me, show me one good magic trick, I'll let you go. I'm paraphrasing. I was in Lodi, California. I was dressed up. The guy thought I was going to a wedding, and I actually said, no, I'm not going to a wedding or coming from a wedding. I just finished a magic show. And he literally said, show me one trick and I'll let you go. So I showed him, it wasn't this trick, but I showed him a trick where I changed $1 bills into $100 bills. And that was wonderful.
Nice. That comes in handy. You don't have to perform as much if you could just do that all day.
I wish I could. If I could do that, I wouldn't be doing Zoom shows. Michael, I am influenced by guys like Anthony Robbins and Simon Sinek. Have you heard of Simon Sinek or Anthony Robbins?
Anthony Robbins, never Simon Sinek, no.
He wrote one of the best-selling books called Ask Why. And you should look him up because he is the top corporate speaker, and he's got probably hundreds of millions of views on YouTube and TEDx or TED Talks. So inspired by these greats, I always think about what are some quotes or phrases that inspire. So this is my closing thought for you. Your thoughts determine your actions. Your actions determine your habits, and your habits determine your destiny. So I want you to think of a person, place, or thing or activity that evokes a positive emotion. Don't say it out loud. For the first time, can you name the positive thought?
Improv.
Improv. It's interesting that you said improv because you could have said anything, but I would like to let you know that I would love to improv with you.
That's awesome. I did not tell him that. I did not tell him I was going to say improv.
So that is what mind reading can look like. And it's direct and it's fast. Before, when we were doing mind reading on stages, there was a lot of process, and it wasn't from the moment something was said to the moment something is revealed. There's no other medium where you can do it so direct and so fast and so powerful. And I have videos of this proving this. David Blaine showed reactions, and I have videos of people freaking out, like saying their baby's name, a husband and wife. I'll share this video with you. I asked him, I noticed that she has a bump, and I normally ask a different question. I said, have you talked about baby names? And I start writing down something. They see it and they're already saying no way. And I predicted the baby name that they never talked about, and they never told me, and you can hear it in their heart and the reaction that they're freaking out. And there's no other venue that you can do that. And only Zoom will give you such a direct hit of this magic mentalism power that happens so fast. And that's why I'm so super excited about it. That's why I don't miss performing live events, because we are live. We're in person. We're just virtually in a different space. And to say something's not live gives it a disservice.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've really seen performance art used really well with Zoom. I mean, where you were interacting with me and I felt it and I was a part of it. And I know, again, I keep going back to my improv and stand up and stuff. That's a lot harder. It's a lot harder for those. Maybe there's something else that we haven't tried. Maybe I have to start exploring that a little more, because it's impressive how well you are engaging through the screen.
The platform that comedy needs, and this is something that I thought hard about, was because I struggled with that, is when you click that unmute, you've already laughed. So you don't hear that. So you don't realize your staff are having fun. So if you realize your staff aren't having fun, you're not going to reinvest in that business. So someone needs to build that virtual platform out for comedy clubs. Instead of building a building, they need to build a virtual platform. And I would love to be an advisor. You know, the side-by-side thing where we're featured side-by-side, that was actually suggested by a magician.
Oh, wow. Well,
and we told the guys at Zoom, hey, this is what we'd like, because some people downloaded OBS, and then OBS would crash some of our systems because some of us had too slow computers. They need to white label it and make Zoom for comedians and Zoom for magicians, and ask, hey, what would you guys pay for? And then break out that set, but have the shell, and then you be able to customize it like customizing a car. Because right now, the way that Zoom has too much functionality under the hood, you get confused right when you go. As a user, it's okay, but as a consumer, as the host, it's too confusing.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that we specifically need. And I don't think they're going to get to that unless they hear this podcast or...
You hear that, Zoom? Dan Chan. Talk to Dan Chan.
Consultant, advisor,
exactly.
And performer to the billionaires. Michael, I wanted to say you are the true star behind Second Scene. You know, what makes you a true star is who you are on the inside. What you do day in and day out mold you into a true superstar. Thanks.
Wow. Very cool. This has been Second Scene with myself, Michael, and thank you, Dan. This has been a lot of fun and gone in many directions I did not expect it to go. You really have incredible business sense, and I could learn so much more from you just chatting with you for hours more. Check out Dan Chan at danchanmagic.com. danchanmagic.com. If you want more no-nonsense advice or free one-on-one mentorship in any area, from resume writing to your mental health, send us a contact request at dweebsglobal.org and we will pair you with a mentor. And we will see you next week for another super interesting guest.